Welcome back to Who's to Know. Tonight we're going to be making roasted cauliflower steaks and grilled chicken sandwich. Now the grilled chicken sandwich, for the chicken part, I went ahead and pre-prepared that yesterday on Labor Day when we had the grill going. So something you're going to see demonstrated is the preparing parts of meals ahead of time in order to have a quick and easy dinner prep the night of. If I was making this recipe from scratch, I'd have to marinate the chicken and grill the chicken, but we've already done that. And so what I'm gonna show is putting that together, and for the cauliflower, we're gonna show doing that start to finish. I've never made this roasted cauliflower steak, so I'm actually going to follow this recipe right here. The first thing it says to do is to take one large head of cauliflower and slice lengthwise into steaks. So we're going to take this part off. I'm not exactly sure what it's called. This recipe actually didn't detail how to cut the steaks up, but I looked at another one and it kind of gave a better idea. Once we get all these leaf parts off, I guess what you would call it, we're going to cut this part off. One thing is that I've already preheated the oven to 400 degrees for this recipe and for the chicken sandwich. We don't really want any of this. Now is how we're going to cut these like this, lengthwise, into steaks. And the recipe said to do them about 1/2 inch. So that's what we're going to try for. I'm actually going to do it 3/4 inch. These are kind of falling apart a little bit. This is kind of the idea of what we want of it being a steak. This piece fell apart a little bit, so did that, but that one did too. But either way, these are still going to be pretty nice pieces of roasted cauliflower, even if they don't stay together. Now I've got my steaks, and I'm going to put them on this baking dish that's lined with parchment paper. If you haven't checked out Allison's video about her advocacy for the parchment paper and using it for roasting all your vegetables, you want to check that out. It is the butternut squash, or no, it's the asparagus. It's the asparagus video that also talks about parchment paper, so you want to definitely check that out. Parchment paper just allows the vegetables to roast more evenly as they're in the oven. So this is the only really one that turned out to be much of a steak. You could also grill these on the grill just like this if they stayed together well like this one did. In hindsight, maybe keeping a little bit of this stem part a little bit longer would have helped some of these other pieces stay together, but that's something to learn. So what we're gonna put onto these cauliflower steaks is 1/4 cup olive oil, which I've got here, 1 tablespoon fresh lemon juice, 2 cloves of minced garlic, 1 pinch of red pepper flakes, and salt and pepper to taste. Now, I like to keep on hand lemon juice like this because I don't usually keep lemons on hand. I have found that the lemons usually go bad by the time I will have used them, so I like to get it in that bottle. Also, I don't keep garlic on hand for the same reason. I've found in times past that the garlic cloves will just go bad by the time that I eventually get around to using them. I do tend to use more recipes that call for garlic, so maybe it would be worth it. But also, this is just a time saver for me that I don't have to sit here and mince up garlic all the time. So again, that in keeping with the idea of parts of this meal have been pre-prepared, like this chicken that we've got here, which we're going to get to next. So that's been pre-prepared, and this is just another time saver. This allows me to get this done in about 30 minutes, probably even less than that, maybe 25 minutes. So I've got the olive oil, the lemon juice, and the cloves of garlic in here, and it says just whisk them together. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put the pinch of red pepper flakes. I've found red pepper flakes is a nice little trick to give certain things some real flavor and some real bite to it. It's one of the things I like to put in as a secret ingredient into spaghetti sauce because it just livens it up a little bit. So that and salt and pepper to taste. So we're going to whisk that together, and now it says, we can actually get to the back part of this, Preheat the oven to 400. We got that going. Line the baking sheet with parchment paper, like I said. Place the steaks on the sheet, whisk the marinade, and brush half of this over the tops of this. If you don't have one of these silicone basters, I would highly recommend it to you. I used to have the little cheap ones that actually were the fibrous hairs, and what I found is after using those over and over, the hairs actually start to fall out, and that's just no good. So I use this for barbecue sauce when I'm grilling chicken thighs on the grill, and it can take some heat on it because it's like that, and it cleans off very easily. So it can be used for a lot of things, and I would recommend this. It's got a nice long handle on it, and this part especially is nice because it doesn't come off, and so there's no chance for any water to get in there and get really gross. So we're gonna baste half of this over top of these, and then we're gonna put these in the oven, and they're gonna cook for 15 minutes. Okay, so these are all ready to go in the oven. We're gonna put them in for 15 minutes. Now we're gonna move on to the chicken sandwich. One thing I like about this chicken sandwich recipe is that it can easily be adjusted for one person or for multiple people. It just depends on how many chicken breasts you have. So in this case for me, I'm just going to use, actually this is, these chicken breasts were butterflied yesterday and marinated and grilled. And so I'm not even actually using a full chicken breast. I'm just using a half. And even still, you could probably cut this portion off to make just a nice piece that would fit just right on the sandwich. So that's probably what I'm going to do actually. Just gonna cut that little piece off, and then this piece, along with this other chicken, I can use later to put in a salad or anything else that I might want. But this for me is a perfect size to put on the sandwich. There's many different variations you could do with this chicken sandwich. For this one, I'm gonna use Havarti cheese on it and go ahead and get that melting. And then once it comes out of the oven, what I will do is put some basil pesto on it. This is gonna make it really, really nice. Again here, I would suggest if you don't eat a lot of basil pesto or use a lot of pesto in recipes, I would suggest getting a small jar of it instead of making it from scratch every time. Again, for me, it's just a time saver. I'm gonna put this on after it comes out, once the chicken has heated up and the cheese has melted over top. I'm really gonna kind of rip this piece apart so it actually fits on there just right, and where it overlaps a little bit, I'm actually going to double that up because I don't want the cheese on the pan. I want the cheese where it needs to be, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven along with the cauliflower. I'm going to put it on the other rack, and this will start, the chicken will start to reheat since it was in the fridge, and this cheese will start to melt. What I'm going to be using as the bun for the sandwich is these brioche burger buns. Now, these are a little bit more expensive than your typical buns because of the way that the brioche bun is made, but I really like it because this is the smallest pack of buns that you can buy in the store. I don't use a lot of buns, whether they're regular buns or like white flour buns or whether they're brioche buns. So for me, actually 4 is just about the right amount of buns so that none get wasted between using them, because it's not like I'm eating hamburgers every night. So that's why I like these brioche buns. They're a little bit more expensive, like I said. Like a typical one, this was $2.99. For a typical 8-pack of buns of enriched flour, they'll probably be the same price, about $2.99 or maybe even less. But I like this for me because it helps me waste less food. And if that means I pay a little bit more for it, I think it evens out in the end because I'm not throwing away a bunch of buns that I haven't used. Something else that I like to put on this chicken sandwich is actually a tomato. Once it comes out of the oven, I'll put the basil on there, and then I'll put a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 slices of tomato on there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that up. And I'm just using what tomato I have here. I happen to have some Roma tomatoes. If you have large slicing tomatoes, you could also use those. So now I've got my 2 slices of tomato for my sandwich. One thing about this store-bought pesto that you might see is it is a little bit more pasty than maybe a pesto in the traditional sense. So what I'm going to do is actually put some of this out in a dish and then add just a little bit more olive oil to make it a little more liquidy. This is just personal preference. This has not got anything to do with the recipe. I just remember the last time I used this that it was more of a paste than I would have liked. So I added a little bit more olive oil. There we go. Now it's got that real oily pesto feel to it. So our sandwich has been in now for about 5 minutes. So I'm gonna check on it and see how it's doing. We do have some cheese that's melting on here, but I think it's good. I'm just gonna feel this. And that chicken feels heated all the way, so we're gonna go ahead and pull this off, and then we will put our brioche bun back on that to toast that up just a little bit. Oh, cheese is flying. I get all that good cheese on there. Just gonna put that directly on there and put it right back in there. Toast up that bread just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get the pesto on there. Go ahead and put our little tomatoes on there. And actually, if you were wanting to do a more low-carb version of this sandwich, that's exactly what you would do. You could just eat it just like that. Forget the bun. If you're doing no carb or low carb, go for it. I like carbs though, so I'm gonna eat it on a bun. The timer for our cauliflower just went off, so we're gonna pull that out of the oven and flip those over. You can see on the side that was down, it's really starting to get that roasted look to it. So that's one reason why we flip things, is so that we can get it even roasting on both sides. Oh, that one looks really good. We're gonna put the rest of our little marinade on here, on this other side. Then these will go back into the oven for 15 to 20 more minutes until they're golden brown. We'll set our timer for, we'll start it at 15 minutes and then check it, and if we need to, we can add 5 more minutes. I'm also gonna check on our bun now. Yeah, maybe just 1 more minute. One thing also I'd like to suggest is, you can see over here, I've got multiple different kinds of spatulas. I've got a slotted one here, I've got this other one, I've got this one, I've got this little baby one. Much like knives or tongs, you can almost, if you've got enough spatulas, you won't have to wash while you're cooking or while you're flipping stuff. Like if I was handling, you know, meat with one and just vegetables with the other one, it'd be really helpful to have multiple spatulas. So these were pretty cheap. I got these, I don't know, $3. There's also ones that, you know, you have the pull it here and it undoes it, but I kind of like these because I can just slip it either way. All right, our bun is nice and toasted and all ready to go. And I knew the bread was kind of getting ready because I could actually smell the sugar from the bread start to smell. So now we're just gonna take the chicken and the cheese that we've got on there, the pesto and the tomato, and go ahead and put it on our sandwich. Just like that. See if I can sop up, oh, well, that was the wrong side. Sop up some of this with this. It's probably not really, it didn't really work, but it's all right. So there we've got our sandwich, and our cauliflower's got about 13 more minutes. One thing about learning to cook that's really crucial and also can be difficult as you start to learn how to cook is getting all the different foods that you're preparing to be ready at the same time. So like you can see, our sandwich is already ready, but our cauliflower has about 12 more minutes and could be closer to 15 minutes if it's not roasted all the way through. So in hindsight, what I should have done was gone ahead and had the first round of cauliflower in. I should have had that cooking for roasting in the oven for 15 minutes, and then after that had already roasted for 15 minutes, pull it out, flip it, put it back in like I just did, then do the sandwich instead of starting them at the same time, because they weren't going to be finished at the same time. Because the sandwich, to reheat the chicken and melt the cheese, was probably only about 5 minutes. Then to do the rest of it was not any time at all. So one of the things we will hopefully show is how to balance getting everything ready close at the same time. So learning how to balance those things and looking at not just one recipe, but what you're making as a menu for dinner, how to prepare those things and start cooking them at the right time so it all comes out and is ready at about the same time so you can eat them together instead of eating one portion of your meal first and then when the roasted cauliflower gets out, eating that second. Having said that, one of the things that Julia really tried to encourage cooks to do was to clean up as you go. So one thing I can be taking of advantage while the cauliflower is still cooking and while I'm not yet eating my sandwich is cleaning up the things and putting things away. That was really something she emphasized. She encouraged people to be their own dishwashers, right? So I've got all these things now. The only thing I'm probably gonna need is these tongs. So everything else I can clean up. I can go ahead and clean that bowl, the whisk, the this baster, and the knife. So that is one thing that I could be doing instead of just standing here waiting for the cauliflower to be finished. So the timer for the cauliflower is going off, so I'm gonna check on it and see if it's ready. So you can see here and here, there's some really good brown bits. So this bigger steak piece isn't as brown, but we could go 5 more minutes for that, but for these guys, I think they're ready. So we're gonna go ahead and get that. So this olive oil has kind of made a mess on the plate here. Oh well, that happens sometimes. If you did want to eat this sandwich in a low carb version and not have the bun, the cauliflower would also be a really nice side dish to go with it because it is also a very versatile vegetable that is also something that a lot of people who are doing low carb eat. So there we go. We've got our roasted cauliflower steaks. Some of them are more steak-like than others, but like I said, if we had left that stem on maybe a little bit longer, they would have cut more into steaks. And we've got our chicken sandwich here with Havarti cheese, basil pesto, Roma tomatoes, and a brioche bun. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.